What is up, you beautiful happy hustlers out there? Kerry Jack here, and I hope you are having an amazing day. Just enjoying this very moment right here and right now, baby. And in this episode of the Happy Hustle Podcast, we have on Mr. Nick Onken, who is most commonly known as the photographer of the Who is Who and some of the world's most highly acclaimed entrepreneurs. Nick Onken is a creative alchemist whose professional and commercial repertoire has no templates or limits. He has been commissioned by top-tier brands such as Nike, Coca-Cola, Adidas, and publishers such as Cosmopolitan, Traveler, Marie Claire. His portfolio has photographed personalities including Justin Bieber, Usher, Tom Hanks, Jessica Alba, Tony Robbins, just to name a few. And he's worked with Pencils of Promise and Lewis Howes and all sorts of other amazing entrepreneurs and influencers. He is all about harnessing the power of momentum and creative flow to lead by example and continually creating and releasing new product lines and collaborations to just help expand consciousness. And you guys are going to love Nick's vibe. He is a happy hustler through and through, and one I'm really excited to share with you guys. So when you get some value, check him out on IG. We got it all linked up in the show notes. He's got a great page. He also makes some super dope hats, which I'm definitely going to get one. But yeah, you guys are going to love his vibe. He is definitely someone who stepped into his power, living life on purpose on his terms. And I'm really excited to share them with you. So let's buckle up and dive in after a quick episode sponsor break. And real quick, guys, I just want to give a massive shout out to Mag Breakthrough, baby. This is Magnesium Breakthrough, my go-to supplement for optimizing my sleep, reducing my cortisol levels, and overall just optimizing my performance. When you're not sleeping good, well, you're not going to perform well. And this supplement is one of my go-tos. And you guys know I just don't recommend stuff that I don't take myself. And this is one that is right by my bed. I take it religiously, and it's one of those supplements that I do highly recommend for just about everyone. And this one has 7 different forms of magnesium. A lot of those magnesiums out there are just 1 different or 2 different forms. This is 7 in the proper ratio, and it's made by a super reputable company that tests over and over again to make sure the efficacy is there. You guys get the hookup for listening and watching this show. You can go to magbreakthrough.com/happy, save yourself some money, get the hookup on this amazing supplement, and you got 365 days to decide if you like it or not, because they have a money back guarantee. So you got nothing to lose and everything to gain. magbreakthrough.com/happy. Now let's dive in back to this episode. All right, Mr. Nick Onken, brother, welcome to the Happy Hustle Podcast. I am super stoked to connect.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, here's the truth. You are a happy hustler through and through. And, I love your story. I recently was reading up on your bio and, how you came from humble roots and you had your ramen days, much like I did, where you were eating ramen noodles and kind of started from the bottom, and now we're here, right? So I'm excited to hear about your journey to this, to this lifestyle entrepreneur, this happy hustler. And I want to dive into how we can extract some of those golden nuggets that you've learned along your journey to help the happy hustlers along their journey. But before we get into all that good stuff, Nick, what's something interesting about yourself that not too many people know?
Well, that's a good question. Depends on who you're asking, right? Because,
yeah.
I think I'm just like, I appear to be like on the creative side, but I'm also kind of a weirdo around I like weird tech shit. I like pyramids. I mean, I don't know if you see
oh yeah, I see some in the background.
Oh yeah, we got like pyramids that I wear on my head for meditation, which we've also turned into like hats. I don't know if you've seen this hat.
Oh yeah, those hats are awesome.
So I love weird shit like that and biohacking, and I don't know if that's if that's like the right answer or if there is a right answer, but yeah, I'm a weirdo at heart.
Hey man, there's no right answer, and I think we're all a little weird. I like the hats that you create. I referenced them in the intro, but they are super dope. If you're not watching on YouTube, and you're just listening on audio, definitely highly recommend checking out these hats. They're I'm definitely going to get one. I just don't know what to have you help me create because they're so unique. And I think, biohacking too. I ran a biohacking company for about 3 years. We were
wow.
working with all the Fortune 500 CEOs and, Olympic gold medalists, not all of them, but like a good amount of high performers and high level entrepreneurs. And, I think biohacking, well, what is it? I mean, it's the use of ancient wisdom and modern science to optimize human performance. And I think we all are biohacking in some capacity. What's your favorite biohack lately?
My favorite biohack has been, God, like there's so many of them.
I know.
I'm gonna have to say the New Calm. I don't know if you've heard of New Calm.
Yep.
But that's been my travel game changer. Because like I don't sleep well when I travel.
Yep.
So, like, and this goes back to one of my other favorite biohacks is the Uller pad by Chili Sleep.
Yep.
And like being able to cool your core temperature when you sleep at night. I think is because I run hot. And so I always look forward to getting back to my own bed. But when I'm on the road, don't always have that luxury. So the New Calm is this really cool thing where it's like get this little patch that goes on your left acupuncture point here. It's a biosignal
on your
disc
wrist.
On your wrist. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. I don't know if this is video or both.
It's both, but
yeah,
I always
for
like
those who are not on the video, it's the
Yeah.
left wrist acupuncture point. And then you wear headphones and an eye mask. And then there's an app that it plays music, but it's under the music is like integrated almost, it's like binaural beats on steroids. It's like way beyond binaural beats. And it drops you into deep theta state. So a lot of times it ramps down, like the frequencies are actually by timing. So like at 8 minutes in, you're ramped down into deep theta and rest and recovery. So a lot of times I'll wake up at like 4 a.m, can't go back to sleep because the room's hot or whatever. And I'll New Calm for a couple hours and it helps balance out my my rest and when I'm on the road. So
yeah, man,
those are a couple of my favorites.
New Calm, get that guy a brand deal. Jeez Louise, that was a great explanation. Oh man. So Nick, I want to dive into your journey as a creative lifestyle entrepreneur. I mean, you really have taken your passion and infused it with your purpose, and you're making a positive impact, and I know those are cliche buzzwords, but that's like what the happy hustle is all about, and living, in balanced, like flow state where you're not just doing it for a paycheck or for profit or success or ego or title. Talk to us just a little bit about your journey as this creative entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, and that's all a dance, right? Like it is priorities dance. It's a mindset of lifestyle design, really. And I think, I went to school for graphic design in college. That was my first career. I took a couple photography classes in high school and college just as part of the programs. And then as digital photography started to get better to be able to use on the computer and the design, I bought a digital camera, started shooting for my design work. And around that time, actually probably like early years, I read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And just, although it was a very different landscape for the book, it still gave me the mindset of like, how can I design my life to be creative and to live the life that I want? And that has looked differently over the last, 20 years. And so I started doing graphic design, which gave me flexibility of schedule, which is great. Then I started doing shooting for my design work. Then I ended up like starting to jump ship and do photography as a career. One of my nonprofit design clients, I convinced to split the expenses on a trip to Africa. Jumped off the cliff, didn't know what I was doing. I just was like, I want to travel and take pictures. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it does.
And they said yes. And I was like, cool. I have no fucking idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I started asking friends or different people around me and got some advice and, pulled off the trip. And that was a life-changing trip in two aspects. It was an immersion into the developing world, which completely shifted my perspective on the way that I see life. And just, we have it so good in the first world, and so to be able to live life from that perspective. And then secondly, it was like, oh, wow, I could really see doing photography as a career. And that was like very eye-opening. And from there, I just started to move into the world of photography. And then I connected with another photographer. He opened my eyes that it was actually like it was actually a career. You can make a business out of it. I had
Yeah.
no idea that photography was an actual business or job. Like I never even thought about that. And from there, I wanted to be a commercial photographer. So I set on that track, and, you know, handful of years later, I was like, I got a job. One of my first big jobs was for Nike, shooting pro sports players.
It's awesome.
That I didn't even know who they were. I had to look them all up, and turns out they're a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of my intro into the world of photography. I thought I was in after that point, but then it was still like a couple more years before I actually started to get the ball rolling. But for me, that hustle, it was all about hustle, because I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to be a commercial photographer, and I wouldn't stop till I got there. And talk about a hustle. That was some years of hustle. It's always a hustle, but like,
Yeah.
that was building my portfolio and doing meetings and getting my work in front of the right people. And soon enough, I got an agent in New York, and it became, it's not that getting an agent really does anything except they help manage and help like give you credibility.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I started shooting all kinds of big print campaigns for everyone from Coca-Cola to Adidas, Nike, Reebok, everyone. And, I'd see my work in print magazines. I'd be sitting on the plane and somebody opens People magazine. I'm like, oh, there's my photo.
Awesome.
So pretty cool. And, that was like all through that was like so much hustle the whole time. And then probably around 2012, social media, Instagram started to come on, social media, digital media became on the rise. And I started losing jobs because it was just this whole shift in the industry of the way clients were doing things, didn't want to pay as much anymore. It was like a whole, like everything, and it's still going through its whole other iteration of that. And that was my first kind of, I don't want to say like mental spiral downhill. Because I didn't know what was happening. I was on top of the world. I'd moved to New York, and I was traveling the world. I was shooting campaigns all over the world, from China to Brazil to Europe, everywhere. And, clients are paying me to fly everywhere. Latin America, did a huge job for Nike down, Mexico City, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Rio. And it was just, I was living the high life. And I moved to New York, and I was living even more the high life because my career, I was making money. I was going out every night until 2 a.m. And then, a few years later, the industry shifts, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? Like way more saturation of other photographers in competition. And I was like in this downward spiral. I didn't know what to do. And I was losing jobs, and my business was declining, and all these different aspects. And, I was talking to our friend Lewis, and he started doing this emotional intelligence and leadership training out in LA. And I was like, man, I need to do something like that. And that was kind of like another one turning point in terms of like my life mindset, and how much it made me realize like how much mindset and emotional, intelligence and leadership and navigation was so helpful to the hustle, because it's all about perspective. It's all about, being able to push through all these things. And so I started doing this program, and that was really a huge eye opener for me. It helped me, like, that was one of the impetus to start my podcast. And I was like, I've got a lot of really amazing friends. I'll just start a podcast. And started interviewing all kinds of really interesting people who had great successes, especially primarily in the creative world. And that was, it was a lot of fun to learn. And one of the biggest, I guess, through lines is that it's all mindset. It's how much can you push through your doubts, your fears, rejection, all the things. How much can you push through that? How much can you rise above that? And, we don't get to choose our circumstances, but we do get to choose how we handle them, and how we move from them. And so that was a huge learning experience for me. And, along the way, there was, I'd connected with, Scooter Braun through the charity that I work with Adam Braun, Pencils of Promise. And that's how I actually met Lewis, was through Pencils of Promise. And, it was just like the idea of giving back, and, kind of boosted me into some relationships to be able to photograph like Justin Bieber and Usher and those guys.
Yeah.
And so that was just like a huge, network learning, it's building relationships. That's like the biggest thing I think in any entrepreneurial venture is who's in your network. How can you add value to them and help them along? Because and when people like you, they want to do business with you.
Yeah. So true, man. I just want to chime in and just extract some of that gold that you just mined for us. One thing that really sticks out is I like to use the phrase persistent consistency. And that's, in any endeavor, but especially the creative industry, it takes persistent consistency, where like adversity is going to strike. There's not like a clear trajectory, in the creative industry. Oftentimes, like when you're climbing a corporate ladder, it's like, okay, I get this promotion, I get this promotion. Your path. In the creative world.
Yeah.
It's ambiguous, right? And so I think it's so important to have that mindset, as you mentioned, that persistent consistency where, the industry shifted, for Nick, and he pivoted and he found other ways to use his gifts. And, I made this connection, and then I made this connection, where you're constantly just evolving, you're pivoting, and you're using that persistent consistency and that mindset to overcome, whatever adversity comes your way. And then the one other thing too that you mentioned is building relationships, right? And I think this one, it's another like cliche saying. They say your net worth is equal to your network, right? And I think there's truth to that. Would you agree? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like everything is on who you know and how much, like what kind of relationship you have with them.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, you photographed, Scooter from Pencil's Promise, and make an intro to Lewis, and, then next thing, Justin Bieber, and then Usher. And it's like how it happened was probably all through relationships and referral, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All relationships. And and you got to be in it to just like offer value and bring things to the table, especially in this world. Everybody's trying to take, and they assume your time is free, and all these different things, because there's so much information given online for free, right?
Yeah.
But when you're actually connecting with someone, it's like, how can you offer value to them? Typically the person whose brain you want to pick, their hour is worth a lot of money, $1,000, $2,000. So if you want to take them out to lunch and pick their brain, a cup of coffee is not that much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For them to be able to say like, okay, yes, I can take an hour of my time to go see this person. So how, when you're building relationships, how can you add as much value to that person as possible? And it'll come back. I think that's the other thing, is just like that I've been practicing and learning is in the world of abundance, is like, how can I keep giving and without like this whole tick for tack, obviously set boundaries. If you're giving to a taker, then they're probably not going to return. But like, I think the overall energetics of giving in general is something I'm trying to practice, and being more generous and, in my day-to-day life. And it's a practice. Like I grew up in a very scarcity driven upbringing. It was like, money doesn't grow on trees. Money is the root of all evil, and all this bullshit that programs the subconscious as we get older. Right. And especially as a creative pursuing, an art in the world of creativity, to actually run a full business and do what you want. There's so many ups and downs financially, and there's months where I don't have any work. And there's months where I have a ton of work, so and you got to be able to ride those out and keep believing. I think there's so much. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, is like the mental, like the spiritual beliefs, and like mental subconscious programming, and all these different things that I've gone through. But that part of the story, there's a big second part of,
and I want to get into it. I want to get into it for sure, but I also want to stay here just in terms of, you said something like adding value first, and that's something I'm big on, like adding value first and foremost. You might be sitting back listening to this conversation and hearing Nick and saying, oh yeah, I mean, it's easy for you to say now, like that you're at that level photographing Bieber and Jessica Alba and all these people. But what you're hearing Nick say is, he added value first and foremost, like he was making himself useful. He was giving his gifts. He was helping a charity, which then, karma circulates. Then you help then you get another referral because you helped someone. And like one of the first alignments in my book and in my framework called soul mapping is selfless service. So selfless service, I think, is giving your time, your money, your expertise to causes and people that you believe in. And, you have to realize, I love this quote by Tony Robbins: the secret to living is giving, right? And it's like, it's so simple, but it's also so profound. And I think once you start giving to others, once you start making yourself, useful, and you start to provide value to these people, you can increase your network quite substantially in a rapid time frame as well, once you really live with that selfless service mindset. So I love that you went there and you were talking about it.
Absolutely.
In terms of creative alchemy, I love the word alchemy. And I know, I want to stay on the business realm before we dive into, the spiritual realm, because I know you're super woke, and I want to, get there. But just in terms of like business and your newest, trajectory for your business, talk to us a little bit about what you're up to now with, creative alchemy and some of these different, offerings that you provide.
Yeah, well, I'd say so. Like, if I continue the story a little bit, is, I had like another kind of business space where I had to pivot, right? Like it was like the commercial industry has just gone to shit. And I was like, I've struggled to figure out what that was. And then Lewis came to me and he was like, hey man, I'm rebranding my website. I need photos, let's do a photo
Lewis
show.
Howes, for people who don't know who we're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Lewis Howes. I mean, School of Greatness.
School of Greatness.
Yeah. And so he kind of was my foyer into this whole other world of helping entrepreneurs and authors and speakers and people, elevate their brands, because I've got all this experience shooting big brand lifestyle photography for big brands and celebrities and magazines. I was like, how can I port this over to the personal brand? And it's really kind of, I have created a process around that for my photo shoots, but I'm also creating a program called Identity Alchemy that's getting there. But just to kind of preface that with, that's, with Lewis, he was like, let's do a photo shoot. I need, GQ branding is his kind of speak, right? Like I'm used to shooting for magazines that are like doing this kind of thing. So I was like, okay, now I can take that learning and create that with entrepreneurs, right? So he can use these in press. He's used them for book covers and magazine covers and things like that. And it looks high level, right? Like people come to me when they want to up level their brand and be a premium brand in their personal brand space. So yeah, that's how that was my pivot, right? Like pivot from the commercial world into creating a whole new business of helping entrepreneurs build their personal brands. So that's kind of where I'm at now in the photography space. And then deconstructing that, we are now building a program for a few more offerings. We'll still do the Identity Alchemy photo shoots, which those are kind of one-off shoots that anyone can, apply for to book me for that. But
I'm going to do one with you.
Absolutely.
They're awesome.
Would love to. Yeah. Thank you. But from that, we've been kind of distilling the process of identity alchemy and what does it look like to create a personal visual brand that aligns with who you are. And you got to figure out who you are first to be able to build that, right? And we're always constantly evolving our identity. I've gone through so many identities over the last 20 years, let alone the last year and a half, right? So identity alchemy is really like, okay, who do I want to, let's deconstruct. So the first step is deconstruct. So let's deconstruct our adopted identity, like what society has told us we needed to be. Let's deconstruct our natural identity of who we really are and what we want to offer for the world. And then, this is like condensed, but then the second step is curate. So we get to sit down and kind of think about and curate who we want to be and who we want to put out into the world.
Yep.
And, whether that's, what are your priorities? What are your, are you into fitness? Are you into health? Are you into hustling or life balance or all these different things? Right.
Yep.
And then we start to create mood boards, based off of who you are and what you're envisioning for yourself. And then the third step is becoming. So stepping into that new identity and becoming that, and then creating the visual assets and the visual brand for your personal brand around that story. So, right, it's like telling your story visually.
Yeah.
So that's what the identity alchemy thing is. And we'll probably like drop that as a cohort course coming up in the new year.
Oh.
And then, and it's really for, starting out entrepreneurs who are kind of like, what's a personal brand? How do I, what is this? And like kind of some ways to get started and things to think about and kind of how to kind of create visual assets out of that. And then I'm creating like a super high-end visual consigliere program where I am like a high-end advisor running point on
creative direction.
Yeah, visual creative direction, finding the right vendors, the right designers, the right people for web media kit. I mean, like I say, my media kit, it's like different people, different experts in different categories. So helping people who've maybe exited a company and want to like really work on their legacy, create a personal brand out of that. Like I help them walk through that process.
I love it, man. And, I just want to, share a little context as to how I realize how important a photographer truly is to your brand, to your business, to your life, and to overall your image. And Nick, I don't know if you know, but I've had one foot in the entertainment industry for like 15 plus years. I had one point been, repped by Wilhelmina and Next models and all these, like, I know I don't look like a caveman now, but back in my prime, a lot of Photoshop, I got her done. And I was doing the thing, and I've worked with shit photographers and I've worked with phenomenal photographers, and the difference of the same me with just the difference of how someone operates a camera and their vibe and their direction changes everything. And so I just want to, basically toot a photographer's horn, and especially someone of Nick's caliber, like the importance of getting your identity and the alchemy behind it right, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're a happy hustler looking to create a personal brand. It's so important to have that visual identity that speaks to your perfect target avatar, that also serves your mission and your message. And you really have to have some foresight. You have to think through it. It's not just, hey, get next to that brick wall and let's throw on a white polo. And, it's like, there's so much that goes into it with the lighting and the imagery and the backdrop and, your costumes and outfits or, whatever. It's like the whole look and feel and vibe is so important. So I just wanted to mention how important it is for you. Where can people go to learn more about that, and maybe even explore that opportunity?
Well, if you go to my Instagram, at Nick Onken, NICKONKEN and ONKEN, and then just DM me the letters IA, and we'll put you on the list to learn more, to get more information when we get it sent out.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, definitely recommend, if you guys are in need of some updated images and some just overall brand direction, check out Nick and reach out to him. This is like, when you're ready to step up your game, this is one of those things that is a must. You just have to have really good branding and imagery that's associated. This is, you think about your first impression, right? Like, people say you only get one first impression, and it's one of the most important components, especially now with this 8-second attention span of most individuals out there. With the hyper scrolling, it's like you got a quick 8 seconds to capture attention, and if your images aren't professional, they're not on point, you're going to lose people, and maybe then ultimately you're not going to be able to serve them with your message. So you're doing yourself and the people you're looking to serve a detriment if you aren't, putting your best
Yeah,
foot forward. So I just think it's really important, man. I just want to mention that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to talk about like work-life balance. Just, I know it's different in the creative industry for you. And I know every day is a little different because there's no, set schedule per se. But what does work-life balance, look like to you? For me, I just want to mention, for me, balance isn't like a finite destination. It's a never-ending journey, and it requires constant tweaks and pivots and, adjustments, along the journey in order to just stay in that balanced, blissful state. What does it look like for you? Like, how do you, implement work-life balance into your everyday reality?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I guess part of it too is like finding your zone of genius and your zone of passion. Because once you find those and you live mostly in those, then it becomes less of a, I don't say it's less. For me, like I wake up every day and I'm like, oh, there's so much to do. But I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I doing? Yesterday, like I got up and I, worked on some branding stuff, did a couple of contracts, worked on a hat, and then started because I'm like learning how to DJ and to produce music.
Oh,
So I'm like,
geez.
oh
Look
yeah.
at
So
you.
I was like, as if I need another creative
Yeah.
hobby, but I'm feeling it and I'm enjoying it. So
Get
I'm
it.
getting Ableton, and I've been DJ. I started DJing earlier this year. So that's been a lot of fun. And I
Super
just like
cool.
yesterday I spent like half an hour like looking through like finding some new music that I'm vibing on. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a set. So I recorded a set, like an hour set, and it just, that for me is flow. And then, working on, connecting with a couple photo shoot clients to book some shoots for next month. So every month's different. Like last month, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was in Aspen shooting Aspen for this
Awesome.
brand called Aviator Nation, who does like really dope. They do like bougie loungewear, but they also
Nice.
now have like puffy jackets and ski stuff, and
Yep.
they're super super dope. And we were shooting in Jackson Hole a few weeks ago. So sometimes
Awesome.
I'm on the road, and when I'm on the road, I don't really get much computer work done. So a lot of it's more I try to get, but that's a lot of relationship building stuff too. Is out, I'll
Mm-hmm.
go out to LA and meet up, set a bunch of meetings, hang out with friends, build connections,
Yep.
things like that. So that's also, it's just kind of like this whole hodgepodge of mixture. Now, what I'm not as good at is like more logistical shit, the logistical marketing and sales type of stuff, which I'm working on, trying to create a system and like find a team that can help me kind of
Mm.
execute more of that. That's kind of a 2022 type of thing.
I'll help you with the sales game. I love sales. So if you want to go through your process sometime, we could talk about that.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
down to hear your thoughts and chat with you on that. That sounds great.
Yeah. But
Um,
but I just want to mention too, like it's different, but depending on what you got going on, like there's seasons of your life too, where it's like, I'm sure you shoot more in some seasons than others, right? So balance looks a little
Totally.
different in that time. Right. So you're
Yeah.
kind of pivoting, you're flexible, you're working in harmony with the circumstances, the variables, right?
Yeah, totally. And I'm in a space now. I'm like, okay, looking out. Okay, I'm only taking 4 shoots a month. Um, so
Which
if
is
you're,
still a lot. Yeah.
it's
I mean,
still a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. But each shoot is like a day, couple days with travel if need be.
Yep.
And then, also implementing self-care stuff. I mean, that's
Yeah.
been the biggest thing. I went through a dark night of the soul, probably three years ago.
Talk to us about
And
that. Give us a little details on that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we can jump back there.
Yeah.
I was dating this woman, and that ended up becoming a toxic relationship. And
Mm.
also part of that was struggling to figure out the pivot and figure out how to, revive my business. New York City ain't cheap
Yeah.
to survive in. so
Yeah.
so there's that pressure of having to hustle and figure things out. And this personal branding, it's a whole different business model, like completely different business model than the commercial world. And there's not very many people doing it, which is also a good space for me to be in. Especially there's nobody with my experience in the commercial world doing what I do in the personal development world. So
Mm-hmm.
I had that leg up on things.
For
But
sure.
still, it's been this like just spiral. And after I had that breakup, I just went into this whole existential questioning of the meaning of life and the universe and everything. Just like, what are we doing here? What's the point of anything? Like, and I was dark for like a year.
Oh, wow.
Through that year, I was like, that was one, but it was one of the biggest
Growth,
pivotal
probably.
points
Yeah.
of my life. And I wouldn't be where I'm at now today if it wasn't for that period.
Yeah.
And so, I'm absolutely grateful for having had gone through that.
For sure.
So I started reading tons of books like, A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle, and Becoming Supernatural, Joe Dispenza, and all these like amazing, amazing books, which have helped me tremendously. I started doing plant medicine, and that's a whole nother journey.
Yeah.
That it's like,
I've tapped into it a little bit down in Costa Rica. Did a little ayahuasca and arrhythmia.
oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been there, but
that was my first ayahuasca journey in arrhythmia.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, right, like 3 years ago, I think. With Jerry, yeah.
Yeah, his character. But yeah,
definitely.
I think there's a lot of growth in that. And I don't look at it as something I feel called to do, like consistently, but I do think if you feel called to do it, I think it's a powerful experience, and potentially you should answer the calling,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's plant medicine for me has been amazing. Especially like mushrooms and psilocybin and reconstructing subconscious patterns and things like that. Cause it's all about intention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. That's a good point. Reconstructing patterns, like just to mention, like that's one of the things where you kind of go back and you process things, and then you can relabel them and recategorize and reconstruct in your brain what that actually means. So yeah, great point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's really interesting, the healing that happens throughout that journey. And just a side note, one thing that's like, when I started my podcast, like doing a solo podcast for me, it would take me an hour and a half to do a 10-minute solo episode. Cause I'd screw up. I'd
overthink
it, screw it up, cut it, re-record, and move through it. And then through, doing work with psilocybin, creating intentions around healing, whatever that is behind it, has dramatically changed the way that I can do a podcast now, where, I can flow for like 40 minutes now.
Yeah.
And one take. And that's been so huge for me.
Yeah. Let me stay there for one sec, because you mentioned something, and I want the happy hustlers to actually hear it in the way that has positively impacted my life. And it's the word intention, having intention behind that social media post, having intention behind that solo episode, having intention behind your photo shoot, having intention behind your book, like thinking through the intention. That's something now I write when I do my solo episodes. I think of the title first and the intention of what I actually want someone to take away before I like write any notes or create anything. It's consistently title first, intention of the overall content and what I want the takeaway to be. And I feel that shift, if you're out there listening and you're maybe a little bit stuck or feeling maybe, a little fear around your content creation process, allow the intention to guide you. Would you say that that's been a game changer for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of interesting too, is like kind of the dynamics of creating with masculine and feminine energies, and masculine energy is intention and feminine energy is flow. And I actually developed this whole idea called create your moments a long time ago. And that actually had to do with the way my process of photography. And, we go into a photo shoot. This is like the pre-work, and I bring this to like the Identity Alchemy photo shoots as well, as like, we create the sandbox with intention. So the clothes, the locations, the props, everything else involved, as with the creative process. But then, we create that with intention and have those all set in place. And then on the day of the photo shoot, all those elements are there. And then we just play and we flow, because the feminine energy is flow. And that's where the magic happens. That's where like the beautiful photographs come from, is like creating that sandbox to play in and creating the space, to tell that story. Like I don't have like, oh, this is the image that I want, the exact image. I'm going to get this image. we
Yeah.
create the sandbox to create something beautiful within that ends up being even more magical than what we had set out to create.
Yeah, I love that, man. What would you say as just, like the biggest piece of advice to creative entrepreneurs, to creative happy hustlers out there? What would you say, just if you had to sum up, your journey and some of the greatest lessons learned into, a brief monologue? What would you say to those creative, happy hustler and entrepreneurs out there?
Well, I would say like take care of yourself first, because from that, everything comes through, right? Like how much sleep are you getting? How well are you taking care of your body? How much are you developing your mindset? How much are you learning and educating yourself? Because that's all going to spill out in how successful you are.
Yep.
In the long run, is how much are you it's really the dedication to your own personal growth and your personal alchemy, and
Amen to that.
then creating from that space.
Love it, dude. That's beautiful. I do want to ask you some of these happy hustle hack questions. And these are basically questions in a couple different disciplines. And first being health, you mentioned health, you mentioned its importance. I want to ask you, do you have a happy hustle hack in regards to your health? Maybe a tip, a tool, a tactic, a biohack. You mentioned Newcomb, but something that you do that helps you, stay sharp, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I have my whole kind of morning routine, which starts with meditation, 20 minutes of meditation, gratitude practice. And that sets the tone of the day, like subconsciously and mentally, before I even look at my phone. So I don't check any messages until after I've meditated. And then I get into movement. So I do like 20 minutes of movement, 5 minutes of stretch, 15 minutes of like HIIT workout. That's like high impact, and so that gets my metabolism boosted, gets my body moving for the morning. And then now I'm like into elixirs and things like that. So I make like these crack matchas with all these elixirs from this company called Anima Mundi, which I'm obsessed with. And I put all kinds of weird herbs and shit in there.
There you go.
So that's kind of like the start of my morning. And I think crafting a morning routine that gets you grounded and gets you into the right state. I also like to listen to a podcast while I'm working out, because that's also a state change.
Yeah.
If it's something that I'm interested in learning or getting inspired by, I think that's huge.
Yeah, I love that. The power of a morning routine. I mean, you win the day in the morning, they say. And, I think for me, just being able to deconstruct a lot of these high performers morning routines from, the biohacking game that I was in, and now figuring out what works for you. That's what's important. Like I have a lot of similar practice to meditation, breath work, movement, gratitude, my rebounder, listening to I have the same song, a mini trampoline.
Gotcha.
Mini trampoline. If you don't have one, you should 100% get one, dude.
I don't have space for a trampoline.
I
would totally get one, but literally,
you could hang it on the roof and then just bring it down when you need it, like, or something like that. But they're great. They shake out the lymphatic drainage system, really good to overall, just to boost your mood too. But yeah, hyperhydrating, having your supplements and your elixirs, your herbs. I'm very natural. I was raised super holistic from my mom. She's big into Eastern medicine, and never had like, a vaccine of any type or I've been all natural, like just that's kind of a big important piece to the puzzle, I think, is just what you put in your body in terms of your nutrition and these elixirs, these supplements. So yeah, I love that you talked about that in your morning routine, because it really does set the foundation. Let's talk about money, man. I want to talk about, I think it's important to talk about it. I think it's a frequency. It makes you more of who you are. Yeah. Do you have a happy hustle hack regarding money? Something maybe that you do to save or spend or invest wisely that you can share with the happy hustlers?
To save or spend wisely.
Anything to do with money that you do that you think could maybe be something that you could share that adds value.
I think for me, it's always been never being in debt and always only spending what you have allotted for. I mean, whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know. But and also like living living below your means and being able to have extra money to invest or to put back into your business, things like that. I mean, invest in yourself. That's the biggest thing. Invest in your own education. Most of my money goes towards education of myself. It goes to health, and it goes to my own creative pursuits. Clothes. I mean, yeah, sometimes I get a lot of shit for free.
That's a perk of the biz for sure.
Yeah, that's also like a game, right? It's a social media, building, which also costs money too. So I mean, you can, the money goes somewhere. But I would definitely say invest in yourself. Yourself is going to be the biggest thing that's gonna grow even more wealth.
So true. Great advice there. And I think one thing you mentioned was just being debt free. That's been such a blessing in my life. When I was like early in my 20s, I was in debt. Like, I think it was like 16K in credit card debt with like student loans and all this stuff. And then I made a conscious choice to increase my financial literacy, read financial books, and be very diligent with this debt payoff. And then I went from like 16K in debt to like 20K positive in the bank within 12 months, just from this financial literacy component, and I think that's the power of like actually educating yourself, right? And as you said, investing in yourself. So really great point there, man. Let's talk about spirituality. Do you have a happy hustle hack in regards to spirituality? Like for me, it's all about faith, like believing in a higher power, something bigger than yourself. My mom's technically Jewish. My dad's technically Catholic. So I'm this, mutt. But I just believe in a higher power, and I pray every day and I practice gratitude. I'm just curious, what's your, a spiritual happy hustle hack that you could share?
Spiritual happy hustle hack. I mean, I think finding out what the relationship between you and the higher power that exists out there is, and diving deeper into that, and like dedicating the time to really explore that. And sometimes that, when you're living in the ego, and I think a lot of the hustle is about living in ego and trying to prove something. And I think there's a dance between what I call hustle and flow. And the hustle is that intention, and the flow is the flowing and being in flow with the universe. And I think the more we can surrender to the universe, the more magic happens in our lives. And really dive into your mental psyche of what drives you and what you need. What are you trying to prove? Like I look at this. Like, have you read David Goggins' book?
You Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, like, he's an amazing like achiever, but he's still at the end of the day, like fighting to prove himself. Because at the end of the day, he didn't get his father's love. And so he's still trying to prove that to him and to the world, the worthiness. And so the deeper that you can dive down and find out where those stories of, not good enough and I'm not loved, or whatever that is for you. We all have different ones. For me, it's a lot of it's not good enough, but where can you work to heal those? And I think that's kind of where some plant medicine for me has helped, is diving into those things and rewiring the subconscious loops, because it's all of it, 5% is conscious, 95% is subconscious. So, because we've been conditioning ourselves for all the years that we've been alive, our subconscious, it's on autopilot. And so to get into that autopilot and start rewiring that stuff, and when you do all that and we start healing those wounds and subconscious operations, we start to connect more with spirit. We start to connect more with the divine. And I think as a creative, it's like, if we can clear the channel and let the divine spirit, whatever you want to call it, flow through, and we get to birth creativity, we get to birth things into the world. As an entrepreneur, your business is your creative art piece. And how can you allow more to build that baby, and to like create that baby, but let it come through, right? That's awesome. I think one of the big things I've learned in relation to spirituality and creativity.
Yeah, man, I love that. And it's just, again, being very intentional with what you want to create in this world, and also healing some of those wounds, realizing where that why comes from. What is it? The
Yeah.
worthiness? Is it the lack of love? Is it you're not good enough? Like, and then work to heal that, so then you can create from a place of pure bliss and service. And I think
Yeah.
that's it all ties into spirituality, man. Now, Nick,
Absolutely.
this has been amazing. I do want to ask you the rapid fire round questions, and then we will wrap this bad boy up. This is basically where I ask you random questions and you just answer honestly. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Favorite movie? Go.
The Matrix.
Love it. Favorite food?
Tacos.
Favorite book?
Becoming Supernatural.
What's your spirit animal?
Penguin.
Nice. First time I've heard that. Best business advice.
Best business advice would be to be you in everything that you do with business, and really get down to the core of who you are.
That's great. 3 things you're most grateful for.
My healthy body, healthy, able body, the magical life that I've been able to create, and the relationships of the amazing people that I have in my life.
Love that. And if you had one billboard for the world to see with your last piece of content on it, what would that billboard read?
Just laugh. It's all one big cosmic joke anyways.
I love it, man. You crushed that rapid fire round, Nick. And I just want to take a moment, brother, to acknowledge you for sharing your love, your light, and your wisdom, with the Happy Hustlers and myself. I mean, you are a happy hustler through and through. And I know it hasn't always been an easy journey. And it's one of those things that I feel all the happy hustlers out there can pull inspiration from, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. And seeing where you're at now and where you continue to grow, it's just, it's awesome. And I appreciate you just putting out that high vibration and those awesome frequencies in the world. So thank you, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, one last time, where can people go to find out more about you? Where do you want people to, maybe listen to your podcast? Where's some of the best links?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like Instagram at Nick Onken is the hub of everything. If you want, my website is onken.co, and the podcast is there, and you can get to pretty much everything from there.
Awesome. And that's Onken.
Onken.
Yep.
Like Barbie on Ken.
Barbie on Ken. That's great. Now, before I ask you the final question, Nick, I want to just open the floor. Do you have any final words for the happy hustlers out there?
Yeah, I guess one thing I was just thinking about is like, you're never always going to be on top. The hustle comes because things go up and they go down. And if you can push through the down times, hustle through the down times, and, elevate your mental state throughout those times, that's where the success comes.
Amen to that. Now, final question, Nick, what does happy hustling mean to you?
It means doing what you love and hustling to make it happen, to create the life that you want.
Love that, man. Nick Onken, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening. We are out. Peace and love.
Later.